Hey guys, what's up? Excoundrel here, and today we are going to be covering Anka. She is one of the newest heroes in Vainglory's roster, and also probably one of the most fun. I've really enjoyed playing Anka on release. She doesn't feel overpowered, but she definitely feels very strong when played in the right hands. If you enjoyed the video, guys, please feel free to subscribe and click the bell button. I will build you a shrine in my room if you do. Anka is a high ability, high burst assassin. Her heroic perk is Execute Strike, which means every 8 seconds, her basic attack against enemy heroes deals damage, crystal damage, based on how much health they are missing. In plain terms, that means the lower HP the enemy is, the more damage you're going to do. She is like a mage that is, or an assassin mage that is designed to finish people off. Also, when she gets a kill or assist, this resets, as does her A ability. Speaking of her A ability, it's called Shimmer Blade. She throws a dagger in a small area of effect, which allows her to then reactivate this within 2.2 seconds and teleport, dealing extra damage to the enemy that she hit with it. Super strong ability for comboing Anka's abilities properly, but also allows her to dive to the backline and also set up really nice kills as well. It's probably one of the most fun abilities that I've ever had to use in the game, so I thoroughly recommend you get your head around that ability because it's really cool. Her B ability is Dance of Blades, which is essentially a cone skill shot. Now, the closer you are to the target, the more damage you're going to deal. The further away, the less damage. She fires 5 knives, and those knives, the first knife to hit deals full damage, and every knife after that deals 50% damage, which means if you are very, very close to someone, you're going to deal insane damage. Her C ability is Mirage, which basically allows her to teleport to a location, become invulnerable during that teleportation. She then spawns clones, which deal damage when they return back to her. So it's supposed to essentially confuse your opponent slightly, although it is very easy to target the Anka when she comes out of that ability. So it's not really like a deception ability too much. So here you can see here is just level 2. Anka's all-in potential is pretty strong, especially if you just sort of jump in with that A ability and then use your B when you're very close. You can deal quite a lot of damage. So you need to be able to sort of make sure you combo those abilities. But that is the standard combo for Anka. The standard combo is A, followed by B, and as you can see here, using C in the right time. You want to try and get behind an opponent when you use your C because you want every single clone to hit the opponent that you're trying to face. And that's exactly what Anka's combos are. So to reiterate, her combos are A, teleport to that person, use B at very close range to get maximum damage, and then try and get one hit of your heroic perk off. Then try and reset where you can. When you're in a teamfight situation, you want to do the same thing, look for maximum impact with your B, and then use your C to get behind the target that you really want to kill and allow your clones to teleport back to you. So that is Anka's general combo. Now we're going to go through a small gameplay video that I had yesterday, and we're going to talk about some of the things that you can do with Anka as well as her builds. So to start off, I build 2 crystal bits. Anka can be played in the mid lane or the jungle, and I think both of these particular roles are very happy to build 2 crystal bits to start off with. So I build 2 crystal bits because it allows me to clear the wave as quickly as possible, and that allows me to do things like this. Just jump in, look for roams, and that's really where Anka shines. Anka is supposed to be a roaming assassin picking on squishy targets. If you get stuck in the mid lane for, the entirety of your game, you're going to really start to struggle. You can see here, we basically knew that there was something going on in the jungle because that healing camp had gone down. You can actually use your dagger to teleport to minions as well as camps, and that allowed me to jump in onto the Catherine. She was already pretty low, so my heroic perk hit her pretty hard, and I was close enough to use my B. The enemy Anka just displayed another thing that you can do with your A ability, Shimmer Blade. You can actually use it to escape situations as well. So if you see a jungler coming in behind your lane, just use that A, jump to him, and get closer to your turret. That's just a really good way of dealing with the enemy jungle ganks, and it allows you to be a bit more mobile. You can also use it to dive over walls if you have a camp near enough, and it's also a really good escape tool in general. So in terms of build path, I like to go for Shatter first, followed by Aftershock, followed by either Spellfire or Broken Myth, but my total build would be Shatter, Aftershock, Broken Myth or Spellfire. So basically those are my 4 items that I'll be looking to include in my build for Anka. I then also go for Halcyon charges for the cooldown reduction, and I also go for obviously a defensive item that I need, either Slumbering Husk or Aegis or whatever. And the reason I go for Shatterglass first over Aftershock is simply because I like to clear waves really quickly as Anka. So I want to be able to have a Shatterglass as well as having my B at level 4 or 5 to allow me to one-shot a wave. If I get close enough to the wave when I have a Shatterglass, and you'll see it later in this game, I can essentially clear that wave really quickly with just one B ability, and then I can look to impact somewhere else on the map. I can look for an opportunity to roam, I can look to get into the enemy jungle, or just do anything else that allows me to be what I'm supposed to be, which is this mobile assassin. If you sit in your lane the entire time as Anka, you're really not doing what Anka is good at doing, which is essentially trying to pick on squishy targets and acting as a secondary ganker. She's also good in the jungle for this reason. Now, but if I was playing the jungle, I would go for Aftershock first, because clearing waves would not be my priority, and I would prefer to have the cooldown reduction and the burst damage that comes from having an Aftershock. But after the Shatterglass, I do like to go for Aftershock, because it synergizes really, really well with her kit. The cooldown reduction is also really important, and also it also does nicely when you have the on-hit damage of your heroic perk and the Aftershock damage. So what you can do, Anka is really good at harassing people under turrets. Even when you see here the Catherine uses her bubble, you get a small movement speed buff, which allows you to dive in with your A, deal the damage, press your B, and then get out of range of the turret. Which is obviously exactly what you want to do. The Kinetic did have her flask there, which meant that we were just going to back off, but you can see that's something that the combo that you can pull off over and over again is if you want to dive people into turret, you can do that with Anka really easily, but you do have to make sure that you do have the burst damage necessary, and also healing flask will really hurt you because you are a burst damage assassin. You don't really have the sustained damage if they have the healing flask, which can kind of stop you in your tracks. You can also use your A on turrets, so don't be afraid to use it like an alpha A, where you literally walk up to a turret and you use it to just position yourself for a B. So Anka's really flexible in that regard, and actually her A functions very similarly to the way that Alpha's A functions, in that you end up behind your target, so you can use it to reposition for a multitude of things. So in this particular sort of gank here, what you can see me do is, as I don't want to buy a Shatterglass just yet, what you can see me do is head towards this bot lane, and I'm going to use this Gwen as a target for my A. I know I'm not going in on the Gwen. What I'm primarily doing is trying to get in range for my B on their opposing Anka. I'm going to use my ultimate, dive forward, allow my clones to deal the damage, and then use my A to get the double kill onto Gwen there. That is essentially what Anka does in a nutshell. She's super focused on being a mobile assassin, and she can make these really, really cool plays where you dive onto the enemy turret and you get kills under it over and over again, and this can happen in team fights as well. Obviously, where I'm going to go now is going to be looking to pick up my Shatterglass. That's going to allow me, and you'll see it when I get back towards my mid lane, to clear waves very quickly. So Shatterglass gives me the burst damage on my B to just essentially clear things out in an instant. I'm then going to work towards my Aftershock from the dueling potential. Before having Aftershock, you are primarily focused on just dealing burst damage, but once you get the cooldown reduction and you get that on-hit damage from the Aftershock, it makes you much more viable in terms of sort of elongated engages as well. And you can see here, once I've got Shatterglass, apart from the siege minion at the back there, the entire wave just gets decimated. And that allows me now to rotate with the Adagio, pick up more jungle camps for free, look for opportunities elsewhere on the map, and you can see that we're already heading towards the top lane to punish an overextending Catherine and Kinetic, which is basically easy pickings for someone like an Anka, especially the Kinetic if you can get on top of her. But the level differential between me and Catherine makes it so that she's very, very, very squishy anyway. So that's going to be an easy kill for me. Now, if you haven't actually gathered yet, I mean, if you play Anka mid lane especially, she's not like most of the mid laners. You know, people like Celeste and Scarf, they push the lane, they farm, they are primarily concerned with just generating gold input. Anka actually spikes really quickly in the game. Once you pick up your first tier 3 item, like Shatterglass, you start to hit really hard. And especially if you've had that super farm in the mid lane, compared to maybe side laners, you are going to be hit, like, essentially one-shotting people at this point. And Aftershock is a massive spike for her as well. She actually scales quite nicely. The only problem with her is that she's very easy to focus in team fights and very susceptible, if your ultimate isn't used right, to hard CC. So that's something that you do have to worry about when you're playing Anka, that anybody that locks you down is going to make you a sitting duck. So she's really bad against people like Catherine, because if Catherine saves her stun for you, especially when you come out of your ultimate, she will die. Like, Anka has got such low base HP that she will die. So you can see here, they dive in from the enemy Anka, just trying to get in on. That's the easy targeting of the Anka ultimate, by the way, so it's very obvious to see which Anka is real. I'm just going to use my boots and use my... essentially use my A to just try and jump on her, but I didn't need to use it because she already jumped back on me. And then I use my heroic perk to get the kill. So the thing that I would stress if you're trying to play Anka is you have to pick your moments incredibly well. Preying on singular targets and preying on people in side lanes is exactly what she does well. However, if you go into a full-on team fight and don't use your ultimate in a perfect situation, it can be so tough to survive those scenarios. And that's why Anka is, in essence, kind of balanced, because she is very easy to focus down, but she's also super strong against those singular targets. A good trade for Anka in a teamfight situation is diving to the backline to deal with someone like a Vox or a Kinetic, killing them, and if they die after that, they've kind of done their job. A little bit like a Kensei, I guess, in a way, but Kensei is still annoyingly broken this update. I think the whole design behind Kensei makes him very difficult in late-game teamfights to deal with, but we'll get there eventually. So as you can see here, I've now picked up my Aftershock. This is going to allow me to duel really heavily. I'm going to be able to basically one-shot people at this point. I was kind of one-shotting them before, but it's going to make me even stronger in that regard. So you really want to, when you have the Aftershock, make sure that you're thinking about your ability combos. If you have time to hold your B to get another Aftershock proc when you're fighting someone, you absolutely should do it. If you're just looking for that strict burst damage, then just don't bother holding it. It really depends on the situation. So you can see here again, I shove that lane in, I leave the enemy Anka in the mid lane, and I'm going to go towards this dragon that was apparently getting taken. So I use my A to generate back towards Tony, and you can see here I'm using my ultimate to get the kill. I'm going to use my A to dodge the Gwen ultimate, and that's going to allow me to pick up the double kill. So there's plenty of outplay potential with Anka. I did just get killed off by their Anka though, feels bad, man. But there's plenty of outplay potential with Anka. Both her ultimate and her A allow you to dodge abilities, get back into the fight when you're out of it. You can juke people super hard. Like, she is a very high skill cap hero, but she also is incredibly fun and incredibly strong when put in the right hands. So those little scenarios that you saw there, I knew I didn't have a reflex block, so I couldn't stop the Tony ultimate. I used my A to get back towards Tony to get in range of using a good B, because I didn't want to waste my B. Once I realized he was dead, because I had used my ultimate, I then went towards the Gwen. I then used my A and reactivated it as I saw the animation for Gwen's ultimate come out, and then allowed me to get my heroic perk off on her and get the kill. So that was a really, really sort of quick, I guess, overview of how Anka can be played, and I'm sure players who are much, much better than me can make it work much easier as well. I'm not really sure why the enemy Anka jumped in here, but I used my ultimate anyway. I think she eventually goes down to someone that isn't me. Oh, yeah, she does. But also you're going to see here another situation where Anka gets the ability to dive towers really nicely. I don't want to go in and fight when I don't have my abilities up, and also I'm really only looking for scenarios where I can get that burst damage off. So you can see here that Tony manages to escape with a sliver of HP. Both the Gwen and the Catherine are very low, but the Catherine gives me a really nice opportunity to dive in onto the Gwen and her, and I get that double kill on the backline. Going to clear out a nice wave with my with my B, and then just going to reset. Also, Anka's A can be used on practically anything that is targetable, so you can even use it on lane minions as well, which is something that Alpha cannot do. So you can use it to dive in around the lane minions when possible, and that gives you more outplay potential in the lane, as well as escaping if you have a wave that you want to escape to as well. So don't be afraid, as long as it doesn't kill it, don't be afraid to use your A on minions to reposition too. So in this particular game, not many people have built shields, so I went for the Spellfire third, and that's going to give me extra burn damage, especially if I'm using my B to harass people, which is not really the best thing that you can do with Anka. Harassing with her B means that you're not really using it to its full potential, but you can't go in at every given opportunity. You do have to pick your moments with Anka, and that's kind of what I mentioned earlier. It's all about picking your moments. But you can see that when she picks a bit of CP behind her as well, she actually really does start to chunk jungle camps, and that makes her pretty good at clearing the jungle as well. So that's been practically the entirety of this game. They end up surrendering in just a minute. And hopefully gives you some insight on how Anka can be played. She is a really, really fun hero, and you can see here right at the end, I go for that last cheeky little dive, try and make sure that my clones get anywhere near. They don't, but regardless, I have my B reset. And that is kind of just some stuff that someone who's only played 2 games of Anka can do. Imagine what you can do when you've played her more and more and more and more. She is definitely going to be one of the most fun heroes. I imagine most people are going to ban her originally, but she'll probably see some play eventually because she's quite hard to play and people can either feed or do really well with her. I think it's one of those either. I suppose you can ban it away from your own team as well. Anyway, guys, thank you very much. I'll see you soon.